Grow Group Leaders, it's good to have you back. Welcome back to another year for fall 2024 and spring 2025. It's hard to believe that we're already back at it. So I just want to say I'm super excited about what God's going to do this year through our Grow Groups. Want to do a couple things real quick to kind of prepare you for August the 11th. So obviously a lot of you will be there August the 4th this week for the training session. Don't forget that. That's at 4 o'clock this Sunday, August the 4th. You will want to be there, okay? The other thing I wanted to just let you know about is that with being a Grow Group leader, there's a very much a pastoral side. Now, I know that not all of you, actually, none of you are pastors, but what I will say is this, is that you are shepherding a flock. You have a flock of students that are into different things these days, and where they are, they're trying to live for the Lord, then some of them are not. And you have to be the one to help steer them in the right direction and helping me and coming alongside me, because I can't lead this by myself. I need you guys in this with me as a team. And so that's what I value and cherish about you guys. So in preparation for just this week for August the 4th, watch this video and let this be kind of like a mock trial of the teaching videos that I do. If you've never done this before, some of you are new, but if you're some of the old crew, not saying you're old, but if you're a part of the crew that's been around for a little bit, then this will be just a refresher for you. So what I'll be doing is I'll be sending videos like this every week to go over the passage. Now, again, this video is to serve as pretty much a reference for you for August the 11th. Remember, you're not doing Grow Group this week. You're not doing it August the 4th, but you are attending Sunday night to be a part of kind of seeing what's going on this week. But August 11th is the day you will need to be prepared that evening to show up and be ready to help lead discussion with your Grow Groups. And again, this is to help you lead discussion, not necessarily reteach the lesson, because I'll be doing most of the teaching, but there will be some parts maybe you want to teach. There will be some things you may want to integrate that maybe I didn't get to cover in those certain parts of the book of Exodus. Now, with Exodus, there's a lot to cover, and so it isn't going to be necessarily a one verse explain. It's a different type of exposition that you're taking from this passage by sharing themes and different things that God wants us to know from the book of Exodus. So to help you right now, I am going through Exodus 1 through 2, so chapters 1 through 2 this coming Sunday night. So what is the whole purpose of the book of Exodus? From my study, what I have seen is that God has chosen to reveal himself to his people, to continue his blessing of his covenant to a nation such as Israel, and to continue flourishing that nation and leading them into the promised land, and to essentially dwell with his people. Now, a lot of those themes you're going to see all throughout these next couple of weeks, but the main intro you're going to see from Exodus chapter 1 is you're going to see a continuation from Genesis, where we've been given this creative mandate to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Well, that is what is happening. You've got the 12 sons of Jacob, or the 12 sons of Israel, in the beginning of chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. And they are going to show how that after Joseph died, the people of Israel continued to multiply. And in fact, in the book of Exodus, that's when we're first given the Israelite people called a people. They are a family, and so now they're growing into a people and a big nation. But there's an enemy, and that enemy is a spiritual dark force, and his name is Satan. Now, you wouldn't think that would be the enemy, because everybody thinks in the story it's Egypt. It is Pharaoh, which they do act as antagonists to the people of God, but behind them is always a satanic oppression. Now, you don't see the word Satan in these passages, but you do see satanic things going on in this. Number one, the new king in Egypt is trying to suppress the multiplication of offspring. He does not value life, and so he's trying to kill Hebrew boys. But the irony of this whole entire story is that through a daughter who was, the new king said, daughters may live, that through a daughter, a son would be born. Isn't that interesting? Good gospel implication that we can see from the text. Um, so you see the familiar foe. You see that Satan is still against it, and Pharaoh is acting as a pawn in his game. But then you also see the foreshadowing of defeat. You're going to see that throughout this passage of that the very thing that Pharaoh or the king of Egypt feared the most was the very thing that was going to be his demise. A son was going to come, that son being Moses, and he was going to be delivered in the most inconvenient context, but yet it was all in God's sovereignty. And you're going to see that ultimately at the end of chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2. And then last but not least, you're going to get to this last part that I want to close this video with, which I think is kind of the summary of the beginning of this. Israelites, they're crying out because they are enslaved. They are seeing themselves not under the blessing of God, but under the curse of God, if you had to really, kind of be in their shoes, because they're suffering from forced labor, the curse of sin, of now that they're having this extra strenuous labor that the Egyptians are pressing against them to oppress them so they don't grow into a great nation. But listen to what it says in Exodus chapter 2, verse 23. It says this: after a long time, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned. You're going to see that multiple times throughout the book of Exodus. Because of their difficult labor, they cried out. Now, notice in this, they did not cry out to God. It says they cried out, but it never says in the beginning that they cried out to God. It's not until God reveals himself as the great I am later. Okay? So keep that in mind. And their cry for help because of the difficult labor ascended to God. God heard their groaning. God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the Israelites, and God knew. God was fully aware of everything that's going on. So the biggest challenge that I'm going to tell the students this week is God hears you, he sees you, he knows you, and he remembers his covenant still. And the way he remembered his covenant was he had to deliver a son. And that would be the Son of God who would come in human flesh, the most inconvenient context, may I add, by coming to earth to die on the cross for our sin. He answered our true cry even though we did not cry out to God. God saved us despite us, and it was through the birth of a son, that being Jesus. And our victory, the foreshadow of our victory, is seen because of the cross and resurrection, because of the blood of the Lamb. So these are some themes you're going to see as we continue, or actually get started, through the book of Exodus. Thank you for joining in on this video. We'll see you later.